Evening all, Daniel Hand, RPG therapist with, as you can see, a slightly different format this time around. There is a perfectly reasonable explanation. Basically, 2024 so far is proving to be quite a successful year. In one respect, it might even be the happiest of my life. We'll have to wait and see. In terms of health, oh my goodness, the past few months have been kicking my rear echelon. A month or so ago, I got a bug and I was in and out of fevers for more than 2 weeks. I've had a couple of really traumatic episodes, which left me just not emotionally able to do anything. I've been in hospital with chest pains, and now I've just started some new glasses, and my eyes aren't doing well with them, and they are now swollen up and are bulging out of my face. It's a beautiful sight to behold. So I thought I would just try a different format where you don't actually have to look at my face. Trust me, you don't want to. So I thought I would have a look this week at maps and the art of drawing those maps for your RPG scenarios, campaigns, whatever. I have always been a huge map nerd. Anybody who's seen my The One Ring RPG Geek Dive, and the love I had for my cloth map from that, you'll know. I do a lot of I did a lot of drawing as a child, and there were two distinct phases in my life. There was before I discovered fantasy maps, and there was after I discovered fantasy maps. Before, pretty much everything I drew was some kind of 1980s Cold War spy base with homicidal booby traps designed to keep everybody but me out. Afterwards, everything was a Narnia clone. And that love has really just never left me. And so, how do you go about drawing a map? Well, first and foremost, let's have a look at some of the maps that are available. And being as I've just mentioned Narnia, let me grab the map that so inspired me from the age of 11 until now. I think it was 11, give or take. This is, as you see, the map of Narnia by Pauline. Is it Bayans? I can never remember how to pronounce her name. But this map, it's going to sound a bit melodramatic to say that it changed my life, but in many ways, this map changed my life. I love it so much, and I have done so much drawing purely as a result of it. And I think that's kind of the first lesson for the art of drawing maps, is find something that speaks to you, something that resonates with you, and for not to put too fine a point on it, copy it. But there are countless fantasy maps out there for you to take a look at. There's Narnia, there's Earthsea. I love the Earthsea map. Again, this was I think this was written. This particular version of this map was drawn by Ursula K. Le Guin herself. I think on butcher's paper. I believe the story goes. But I think the most iconic map, certainly in the fantasy realm, is this one here, the map of Middle Earth, as drawn by, was it Christopher Tolkien who drew this one? Anybody with a passing interest in fantasy map making will be familiar with this one. And this is what inspires so much fantasy cartography today. But is it the be-all and end-all? Well, no, as a matter of fact. Tolkien himself didn't have that map to work with when he started writing. Indeed, he didn't have any map at all, I don't think, for a little while, until he scribbled this out on, as you can see there, an old piece of exam paper when he was working at Oxford. And I think, if anything is to be learned from this map, it is that maps, when we're drawing maps, they don't have to be pretty. They don't have to be... they have to serve a purpose, and that if that purpose is just your for your information, don't feel obliged to make it, a landmark in cartography. There you go, that's better. It's our job is to run a story from part A to part B, and this map did very, very well in that regard. And eventually it got expanded to this map, which, again, still very crude, but a lot more detailed and a lot cleaner. But just another thing that Tolkien drew, just which not as many people are aware of, is this is one of the first maps he ever drew of Middle Earth. As you can see, a side-on view of the world as a ship with the sky as a sail. And I again, a huge Tolkien nerd, and I just love the fact that he demonstrates so many different ways for you to bring your world to fruition. So again, have a look at your favorite fantasy novels. If they're worth anything, they'll have a good map in the front, and just see what inspires you. If you're looking for maps from RPGs to be looked at, again, there are just almost too many to name. Well, there are too many to name. You've got the ones for things like Lord of the Rings, obviously, but you've got the Forbidden Coast. The vast majority of RPGs that come with a pre-made setting will have a world map of some description or other. And if you've got those maps to hand, you don't really need to draw a map yourself. Just grab the book, look where you're supposed to be, and move on. If, however, we're looking to create a world for our own personal use, then the first job is just to decide what kind of scale you're looking at. Are you going to plan out the entire world? Are you going to plan out, a kingdom-sized area of land, a little region within a kingdom, a village-sized area? Figure out the scale for the story you're telling. There's no point mapping out an entire world if you and your players are ever only going to visit a single point on that map. Instead, focus on that little area and map that out, or even decide whether or not you need a map. You might decide, well, I'm in a small area, I don't need anything, move on, job's a good one. But then once you've decided what you want your map for, that's when you start putting things together. And I'm going to go through a couple of just simple ideas about how to draw just your basic bog standard fantasy map. Obviously, you've got sci-fi maps, you've got modern day RPGs with their own maps, you've got tactical maps, you've got dungeon maps. I'm just going to focus here and now on drawing those fantasy world maps or fantasy area maps. If this does well, I might do more for those other genres, but stick with what you know, and I know fantasy maps. So believe it or not, that there is a map. Not the most exciting thing to look at, I'll grant you, but a map nonetheless. You could say, this is your party, this is where they want to be, and this is an obstacle between A and B. Or this is a village, this is a forest, this is a mountain. If you are really adamant that you don't know how to draw, well, hopefully you'll feel differently by the end of this video. But again, we're looking at what you need the map for. If all you need is kind of a mind map to get from A to B, and nobody else needs to look at it, stick with that. Don't stress over it. But if you want to go in a bit more artistic, a bit more flourishy, and let's have a look. So the first thing you're going to need is a coastline. 99 times out of 100, most fantasy maps have a coastline somewhere. I mean, good luck finding an entirely landlocked fantasy map. If you find one, let me know, because they are very few and far between. But the way to draw your coast, simple idea. Just, there you go. You've drawn a line. Wow, that was hard, wasn't it? The only thing is that line's a bit meh, just a bit straight, a bit uninspiring. And the way to master drawing coastlines is the art of the quivering hand. And indeed, that is something that's going to stick with us throughout the entirety of this video. So when you're drawing, you just let your hand shake slightly, shiver. And when you go, just go in and out, just judder, slightly shiver, and all of a sudden that coastline looks a bit more realistic, just a bit more inspiring, and a bit more, oh wow, you put some effort into that. You didn't put any effort into that, you just drew the same line, except you let your hand shake slightly. For some people, that right there is enough. You just want to have the delineation between land and sea, and you can move on. But if you want to make it a bit more obvious which side is the sea, which side is the land, then there are lots of different things you can do. You can just draw waves here and there, or in a lot of maps you'll see where they just dot one side, kind of getting with the dots getting more and more concentrated the closer you get to the coastline, and then just fading out altogether. Others do it with the dots on the landward side, as if you've got a beach. Other maps, for example, you just kind of trace the coastline a little less shakily, and just getting a bit more and more straight the further out from the coast you go. But really, that's taken a few seconds, and if you have an entire piece of paper to draw that coast on, the longest job will be if you are dotting it and just taking the time to get a rather uniform concentration. But hopefully, if nothing else, this video will prove that it's a fairly simple job. And once you've done your coastline, really, you've got most of the work done there already, and everything else is just filling in the blanks. If you want to draw rivers, all you do is exactly the same thing as you did with your coast. Just do your shaky hand line, and then let's just say there's the coast there, and it's going down there. Okay, maybe they've joined together somewhere. Maybe they've got an island or a lake or something like that. Again, simple. If you're a bit closer up and you want to show your rivers a bit wider, you can do exactly that, except, maybe say that it's you've got 2 lines instead of 1. Or if you want to be posh, you can start off small and go and go slightly wider. Or if you're really up close, just do the same juddery line and then do another juddery line, and then a few more to represent the current. And once you've got your coast and your rivers, already you've got kind of a broad outline of where things go. Obviously, if you've already planned everything out, you'll know mostly where things are going anyway. But if you're just kind of discovering the world as you draw, it's a lot of fun. I encourage it. Obviously, rivers are dictated by the lay of the land, and find me a fantasy map that doesn't have a mountain range somewhere. And again, what do we need to draw mountains? Just that shaky hand, because a mountain in real terms is just an upside down V, or for our purposes, a shaky upside down V. And if you want a mountain range, you draw another upside down V, and another, and another, and another. Again, as with the coast, you've got different styles you can use to give them a bit of life. You can, again, just kind of dot shade one side, or you can kind of, it's not shade in one side. You can put it a bit more detailed, draw some ridges. Any number of different ways. Didn't do a very good job there, did I? You can do it. Oh, side note, I don't necessarily advise drawing straight with a fountain pen, but I needed something that would show up quite well, and this was it. And of course, you can do any combination of any of these. You can have that type of coast with that type of mountain and this type of river, for example. It's entirely, it's your map, your call. And once you've got your mountains, your rivers, and your coast, another staple of most fantasy maps is forests. And forests, for our purposes, are just trees. And again, you can be as detailed or not as you like. If you really aren't confident, it can just be a lollipop. If you want to be a bit more confident, it's just a cloud with a stick coming out the bottom. Or you could be a cloud with 2 sticks coming out the bottom. Or cloud with 2 sticks coming out the bottom and a bit of shading on one side. And the way you get a forest out of all these is you just add more. So it could be like that. You just give her a sporadic group of trees, or if you wanted, you could kind of overlap them. And then by the time you've got all of this together, you're pretty much on the way to having an entire map drawn. The other thing that's missing, obviously, is settlements, and different maps, different styles will have different requirements. Some of them, if you've got a city, there you go, that's your city. Or some of them will have kind of icons. Yeah, bog standard things. Others will have much more illustrated things, which will take a bit longer to draw than the rest of it. For example, I mean, again, this is rather rushed, so it would look neater than this if I was taking my time, but something like that. Or if you want to, was it Piri Reis? Was that him? I can never remember his name. Piri Reis. He drew Cairo of just hundreds of these shaped huts with I think a couple of windows here and there. Or you can draw bird's eye view. Yeah. But hopefully, if you get nothing out of this video, you'll realize that actually drawing maps is extremely simple. You know, it takes time and it takes effort, and it can be very frustrating when you think you've got somewhere and then you put something in and you think, no, I was doing so well, I've ruined it now. But the quote-unquote technique needed to put a map in, put a map together, should I say, very simple. Just master that art of shaking your hand whilst you're drawing your lines, and you're on to a winner. I was initially planning to actually draw a map as part of this video and show you how it's done, but I've seen how long it's gone on for already, so I think I'm going to call it a day there, and I will draw a map for next week's video. That way you won't have to look at my face then either. But if you found this useful or interesting, or if there's something I've missed that you think I should include, please do let me know in the comments below. And do you have a favorite fantasy map or fantasy cartographer? Again, let us know in the comments, because I am always looking for more maps. And if you have certain questions for me on the map making front, I will try and consider them before I draw our map for next week's video. Whilst you're down below, would you mind please very kindly liking, subscribing, and sharing the video with your colleagues? But yeah, I hope you found this interesting, and join me again next week, where I will actually draw a full map for you. So until then, take it easy, don't do anything I wouldn't do, and have a good one. Cheers.